welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Dinta and today we'll be doing a full makeup tutorial. Started by cleansing my model's face after I applied primer Stay Matte from Rimmel. After blending the primer out, I went into applying moisturizer. I used the moisturizer from Blossom, and after applying this moisturizer, I had to dry it out using a hand fan. So that is the step. After drying out the moisturizer, I went into applying a mattifying primer on her T-zone from Art. After that, I will use the combination of After using my moist beauty sponge to blend out the foundation all over her face, I went into highlighting her face using a concealer from Avour Cosmetics. So I highlighted the parts under her eye, her T-zone, and you notice that I tap in. I do not drag my beauty sponge throughout her face. I tap in, I do not drag. It's really important that you use a beauty sponge in this manner to get positive results. So I take my time to blend it out. Makeup is about blending, guys. If you're not blending it correctly, your results are not going to be anything beautiful. So you need to blend and blend. After blending out this concealer, I now went into the Laveeda palette and set the parts which I highlighted. So I'm setting under her eyes with a powder shade that is 2 times lighter than her skin tone. So while setting, I use a little bit of product and I tap it in and do this progressively. I do not go in at once with lots of product. After highlighting, I went into contouring using a powder shade that is 2 times lighter than her skin tone to contour the sides of her nose. And I do this step repeatedly because this is a step that really defines the shape of her nose. And if you do not get it right, it's really going to be obvious since the nose is at the center of a person's face. You need to take your time to contour and make sure that the results look good and that it's really symmetrical. After contouring the sides of her nose, I went to contour the lower part of her jawline. And you see the way that I do this, I tap in, I do not drag the brush all over her face, guys. And then I went into contouring her hairline as well. So I really take my time to get the skin work well done. So I do what I'm doing over and over again till I'm satisfied. Then I went into a Tehila palette Rosy Cheeks to apply her blush. It's the orange blush. I think it's the shade Boom. So I applied just a bit of blush. I really love the effect of blush, and when you know how to use blush, it gives you something really beautiful. For the baking, I used the Merak setting powder in the shade Ginger to bake under her eyes. And you notice that I use much more product in this step because this excess product is going to help me catch out fallout eyeshadow when I'm doing the eyeshadow. So this is why I do this step before the application of eyeshadow. This is one of the reasons, and it also gives me time. I'll do this step before doing the eyeshadow so that it gives me time to let the face bake correctly before I can come and take out the excess powder. So it's necessary that you do the reverse contouring around her nose. The lines are really straight. So now I went into holding down her brows using a brow tamer from Khalifa. It's necessary that you have all the brows tamed, all the brow hair tamed before you go into sculpting the brows. This eases your work and it helps define the shape of your brows. So I do this step repeatedly till I'm satisfied, and then I went into drawing her brows using the Davis pencil. This pencil is quite accurate and really affordable, so I always advise beginners to start with this because the effect that it gives is quite good compared to the price at which you get the pencil. So I sculpt both brows, and I make sure that the shape is similar on both sides. The shape can never be exactly the same, guys. With time it gets more and more similar, but as a beginner you should understand that the shapes are never going to be exactly the same. So but you put in effort, you try to make them as similar as possible. After having the shape outlined of both brows, I now start filling in with fake strokes of hair. And you notice when I fill in with fake strokes of hair, I go over it again to make sure that I've filled in all those empty spaces and that the entire brow looks uniform and well filled in. So I do that for both brows, and I do that with fake strokes of hair, one after the other. I do not go into coloring or dragging the pencil all through into the brows. No, I fill in with fake strokes of hair, and then later on I can go back with my spoolie brush to brush it out and make sure that it is filled in evenly. I now went into Ferarucci concealer palette with my angled brush from Becharm Ageless to conceal the brows, and I'm using a shade of concealer that is 2 shades lighter than her skin tone. So this, I start concealing from the arc area, and I do this step really well. I go into it and I make sure that the details are there. Like, I do it over and over again till I'm satisfied with the details, making sure that I do not have a harsh line immediately at the end of her brows, but that I'm blending out the concealer to a distance, quite some distance away from her brows. This helps to create a natural effect, and it helps to get rid of potential harsh lines that you could have while concealing your brows. So I do that for both sides. The reason why when working on the brows I do the same step for both sides before I proceed is because I want to be sure that I can monitor the shape of the brows as I proceed. I don't want to finish and then I discover that one isn't similar to the other. Then for the part of her brows closer to her nostrils, I used her foundation shade, the same mixture of Avour and Vee Beauty that I used for applying foundation throughout her face. I use it to conceal. This just helps to give a more natural effect. And I do the same thing for the upper part of the brows. After I'm done with the brows, I now go into setting the parts of the brows which I concealed, and I use a powder shade from the same Laveeda palette that is similar to the shades of concealers that I use to conceal to set. So I use the respective shades of powder and I set the parts which I conceal while making sure that I'm blending out the concealer to eliminate any harsh lines, and also to just make sure that the concealer in these parts is well set and doesn't begin to crease later on. So I do this step really carefully, and while making sure that I do not ruin the shape of the brows with this brush that I'm using. The step is important, but it's also important that you make sure that you maintain the shape of your brows. After the brows, I now went into applying an eyeshadow primer. I think I used the eyeshadow primer from Viange, and I blend it out. Since this is going to be the base of my eyeshadow, I need that it should be well blended, because if it's not well blended, my eyeshadow will not sit well on it and it will not be well blended as well. So I start using a powder palette. I don't remember what powder palette that was. I'll leave it in the description box to do her transition. And I'm just using a shade that looks like a brown eyeshadow to do her transition. And you notice the way I apply the eyeshadow, using a bit of circular motions to apply. And I do not just tap in on one spot, but I make sure that I'm blending as I'm applying. So I do this step repeatedly. I'm sort of creating a smoky effect, but with a powder palette and with really brown shades of the powder palette. So as I'm progressing, I'm using darker and darker shades. As I'm progressing towards her eyelashes, I'm using darker and darker shades just to try to create a sort of a smoky effect, but using powder palettes. I always say that we can use powder palettes to create really beautiful nude eyeshadow looks, and it's really possible to do this. So guys, you can still get a beautiful eyeshadow look using just your powder palette. So you notice that I'm doing this. What I do for one eye, I do for the other eye, just to be sure that I can follow up the similarity between the two eyes. After I'm done, I went into a Blossom palette, African Queen, and using the shades Cheesy and Chisholm, I now try to create the halo effect in the middle part of her eye. So it's still really nude shades, and I'm just using these two, the mixture of these shades, to create a halo effect in the middle part of her eye, and making sure that it blends into the other parts that I did using a powder palette. So I do this over and over again till I'm satisfied with what my eyeshadow looks like. Then I went into eyeliner. I really can't remember from where I got that eyeliner, but you can really just use any sort of eyeliner. Any good quality eyeliner works. And I line her eyes. I really didn't want to create anything too dramatic. I just felt like this look needed just a bit of eyeliner, and I do that. You notice that I do the eyeliner with little strokes. I do not just go through at once, but I do it with little strokes, and then after I have the line defined, I then go over it a second time to just make sure that it is smooth and that it is uniform. So guys, you can never focus too much on speed while doing this step, because eyeliner can dirty your eye look, so you have to be very careful while doing this step. So after that, I just used a bit of the eyeshadow base to line her tear line under her eye, and I went into mascara. The mascara, I got it from Blossom, the Scandalous Duo, the 2-in-1 mascara. So I just use it to brush out her upper lashes and a bit her lower lashes as well. This just helps to clean out the dirt that the eyeshadow could have deposited. So I make sure that I've got the mascara really well applied, and that all parts of her natural lashes are dark enough and not dirty with any excess eyeshadow that fell out. And after I'm done with the mascara, I went into applying lashes, and as you notice, I apply my lashes first from the middle part, and then I make sure that the outer corners are really well fixed, and I press them in. It's important to use good quality lashes, guys. Then I started lining her lips with the Avour Cosmetics lip gloss in the shade 22. When I'm done lining the outer part of her lips, I now fill in with a shade from Becharm, Ageless. It was a bit of pink and nude mixed together, so that is. Then you blend in using an eyeshadow brush. After I'm done with all that, I now went into a setting spray from Kiss Beauty, and after the spray dried out, I went into applying a bit of highlighter from. I use the Tehila Cosmetics palette, Face Sculpmetics, to do this part. So I highlight the tip of her nose and the upper part of her jaw line, that is her jaw bones, and that you don't want to go in with too much highlighter, else it's going to make your look too harsh and it's just going to stand out in a way that you will not like. After I went into applying gloss to her lips, I used a gloss from Exclusive and I apply it carefully to make sure that I do not have excess gloss on her lips, or that the gloss does not go out of the boundary of her lips. After I do this step, you can ask your client to smudge her lips after you've made sure that you had the corners all figured out. And finally, I went with a fixed spray that from Seal It to lock everything in and make sure that her makeup is durable and that it lasts at this point.